It's a pleasure to be here this evening at an event that brings us together as development partners, as academics, as youth, to discuss basically the future that we want. We live in very exciting times with the rise of technology. People transcend space and time to interact and to work together. Resilient infrastructure physically connects people and places. The number of people living in poverty has been halved. Innovation continues to help find cures for diseases and health outbreaks around the world. But pockets of vulnerability, such as conflict, violent extremism, and natural disasters, threaten global progress. I did a little Google search before I came here, and there's still 9 major conflicts raging on this continent today. And approximately 65 million people are still displaced globally at the end of 2015. Approximately 71 million youth are unemployed worldwide, and 156 million young people still live in poverty. Natural disasters caused over $1 trillion in damages and affected 1.7 billion people between 2005 and 2014. Innovation could be our key to addressing such issues. And ladies and gentlemen, to address these issues, both what we're seeing now and what will come our way in the future, world leaders came together and they did something special. They came up with what we call the Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs were born in 2015, and they're a global vision to change the world for the better, to create the world that we want. In a complex and often uncertain time, the SDGs are a moving target. And therefore, we must identify innovative ways of thinking through alternative and future scenarios. Achieving the SDGs will require us to take a future-oriented vision, to identify strategic opportunities, to design resilient policies, and the ability to test opportunities for innovation in delivering public services. Our thinking, our planning, our implementation cannot be linear. For example, are we thinking through the link between improvements and access to quality education and decent employment? Perhaps we need to think through what kind of education will be suitable for children seeking jobs in 2030. Is our present curriculum and system designed to respond to that? Likewise, what demands will be placed on the water and energy sectors through greater industrialization against the backdrop of unpredictable weather patterns? What kind of infrastructure will be required to provide equitable access to the people? These are all things that we think about. The global agenda is particularly relevant to Africa, and discussing how best we reach a developed nation status should certainly be on our agenda. And just to digress a bit, I'm of an age, and I think a few of us are here, where we would not have imagined the mobile phone. When I went to school, I guess as front row, you will remember the stencil. That's how we made photocopies. It was nothing like a photocopy. So this would be the time to let our minds free to imagine what is the future that we want. If the world is still admiring the story of the Asian tiger, they better get ready for the record-breaking African cheetah. A astute cat is the fastest and arguably one of the most efficient animals on Earth. Africa, like the cheetah, needs to be strategic, focused, and efficient if it is going to reach developed nation status. Its path to development perhaps lies in its untapped potential, its youth, and the promising investment destination the continent offers. Africa's natural resources are unrivaled. Today, 5 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are in Africa. By 2022, more Africans are expected to be middle class rather than poor. By 2060, the population of Africa could grow to 2.7 billion people. Is this a challenge or is it an opportunity? Africa is already becoming a center of young talent, creativity, and innovation, and with a younger, healthier, and better educated population, the possibilities are endless. We only have to look at things like M-Pesa and Kenya, look at Nollywood, the 3rd largest producer of local content globally. It's all on this continent. However, across sub-Saharan Africa, approximately 40% of populations live in poverty. Only 16% of government expenditure is on education, and over 28% of mothers still die in childbirth on this continent. To continue on its path to development, Africa must be center stage in eradicating poverty, saving the planet, and ensuring prosperity for all. Ladies and gentlemen, Namibia is an excellent example of a stable democracy able to develop and implement sound social and economic policies. Namibia has a dynamic, open economy with quality infrastructure and a strong comparative advantage in the extractive industry. Namibia could thus serve as proof of concept of the development model for Africa. We were recently in Swakopmund as the UN country team here in Namibia, and we're trying to plan for the next 5 years. And this was very much our vision. How do we help Namibia become proof of concept when it comes to development nation or developed nation status? Namibia and why? Namibia, has effected one of the fastest reductions in poverty on this continent. I'm still trying to find a country that did it faster. It has managed to reduce inequality while growing its gross national income. If I have my statistics right, Namibia is one of only 8 countries that has managed to make a dent, albeit a small dent, in inequality. Namibia ranks number 5 in Africa on the Mo Ibrahim Index for Governance. Namibia ranks number 1 in the provision of education, number 1 when it comes to press freedom. Namibia ranks number 4 in Africa in terms of gender parity empowerment. However, despite these good stories and its remarkable progress, Namibia still faces a number of challenges. It has one of the highest levels of income inequality in the world, with a Gini coefficient of 0.57. Evidence confirms that high initial levels of inequality partly offset the expected benefits of growth. And we know that for every dollar spent in an unequal country, it buys you less and less social progress. With its dry and arid climate, Namibia is prone to drought and subsequent flash flooding, which negatively impacts various sectors and strains livelihoods of many Namibians. This highlights the need for participatory vision, resilient planning, and innovative solutions. This also highlights the need for data to build scenarios and projections moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know Namibia has launched a war on poverty, and it recently elaborated the Harambee Prosperity Plan, the National Development Plan 5, the Poverty Blueprint, and we have all been charged to Harambe in partnership to ensure that nobody will feel left out of the Namibian house. The foundation exists, commitment exists at the highest level. Standing at the efficiency-driven stage of development, Namibia must now actively focus on efficiency and quality if it is to reach greater economic diversification. Namibia also needs to redouble its efforts to ensure that economic growth is complemented by well-designed, sustainable, and perhaps most important, inclusive public policies that redirect resources where they are most needed. Ladies and gentlemen, and in conclusion, I am convinced that if there is one country on this continent that could demonstrate Africa's exceptionalism in economic growth and in social progression, that nation is the land of the brave. I have spoken about some of the required success factors and want to conclude with just one more criterion: partnerships. Namibia will need coordinated partnerships to collectively envisage the country's future needs and plan for them now. Namibia will need partnerships with all stakeholders, including the private sector, academia, civil society, development community, youth, our old. We will need everybody on board for this agenda. Namibia will need partnerships for data and analysis. As the saying goes, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And most important, Namibia will need partnership to deliver on its Vision 2030, a peaceful and industrialized Namibia, a Namibia driven by healthy and skilled Namibians, a Namibia where nobody feels left